Okay. How are you? Okay. Hey.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest in our series of virtual wine tastings with Great Wine Online. And I'm delighted to welcome my colleague, Steve Parker, who some of you may have met before. Steve is affectionately known as the Cheese Man, and has written a great book, which it's now available actually on our website. So if anybody is interested in getting a copy of that, it's there. But I'd also like to welcome, buenas tardes, Felipe, ¿cómo estás?
Buenas tardes.
Felipe is from the Bodegas García Tinto Figuero, and he is joining us tonight from La Horra in Spain. I can see that the weather there is as good as it is over here, Felipe. Through your window.
It's really good. It's springtime.
Fantastic.
Always it's changing. You can have sunny during the morning, but a little bit raining or a storm at the end of the day.
Fantastic. Felipe, you and I were talking earlier about the area that you are from, Ribero del Duero, which is an area that's probably not that well known over here in the UK. We all know Rioja, we all probably know the Penedès region for cava, but Ribero del Duero is probably not as well known. So would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and about the region, and then we can start asking you some questions about your particular bodegas?
Okay. Thank you, Penny. You make a lot of questions at the same time. Let me say hello to Helen and Andrew. That is the first time I saw the face from the last year. Welcome everybody to this tasting. I have prepared some pictures just to explain you a little bit about the appellation Ribera del Duero, a little bit about Figuero, and obviously we will have the chance to taste our Figuero wines. The map that you have behind me is the map of the appellation Ribera del Duero. Ribera del Duero is in the central of Spain. That means north to Madrid and south to Rioja. We are on the middle between Rioja and Madrid. What makes very special this area is the Duero River. The Duero River, you know that, probably you don't know, but born in Soria province, this is on the east part of Spain, and go through Spain until Portugal and end in Porto, in Portugal. The Ribera del Duero is located most on the east part, and it's on the highest altitude. That's make a real change for the climate. The altitude in the Ribera del Duero is between 750 and 900 meters altitude. And we are located just on the middle. You can see a red circle with the logo Figuero. We are just in this part. This part is where the Duero River make a bend. And then we are on the right side of the bend. That means that the type of soil that we will have are sedimentary soils, mainly clay, silt, and some part of sand. Now behind me, you will see the map of soil. You can see that we have on the north, we have a forest, and in the south, we have the river. And we have three small rivers coming down from north to south that make three small valleys. Also, you can see that we have not a big difference in the type of soil, because the brown is clay. Okay, I try to move, but this is not easy to find properly properly here. You can see that we have silt, clay, the green part is conglomerate with metamorphosis quartz. This part of the river is a little bit different, and also this part, that is where we have more silt, sands, and some clay. But what is important here is these three small rivers make small valleys. I will show you in this other part. Yeah. Now you can see a little bit with the altitude. Yeah. As close we are of the river, less altitude. As close we are to the forest, more altitude. And then we have different inclinations. east, west, south, some vines north, and this make a big challenge. The next map that I will show you is the map of the plot that we have. The map of the plot, you can see we have here more than 100 plots spread around the town of La Horra. This is a different concept, and this is we can make combination of plot to make different wines. This is a difference from France that they have the chateau concept. We don't have the chateau concept. First we were viticultors, then we far grapes for other wineries, and in 2001 we decided to create our own winery. This is the history of my father Jose Maria and my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law Milagros Figuero. Now you recognize where the Figuero brands came from. Is the surname of Milagros, my mom-in-law.
Yeah, that's her surname, Figuero.
Yeah, Figuero is the surname. You know that in Spain, when you are married, the women lose they keep the surname, and we use the first surname is father, and the second is the mother. There's my wife is Garcia from his father, and Figuero from his mother. This is roughly a little bit about the Figuero. What is important here? Obviously, this is the type of vineyards that we have. This is more picture of the vines like this one. This is all bush vines. My father and mother-in-law, as they were viticultors, we have a nice assortment of bush vines, Covelet, in older than 60 years.
Wow.
What makes us different to other wineries is where we are, but always how we make the cultivation. And this, I consider that this is one of the key or the most important things that we have. The way that the people, the farmers farm the vines has a big influence on the quality of the wines. The first that we did is we work in dry cultivation. This is really important because we will have a nice stress on the vines, but we cultivate in dry cultivation because the soil that we have is the clay, and the silt has the ability to keep the water from winter and from spring. This is why we can do that. Also, we use some what we call infusions, that is comes from plant to improve the immunologic system of the plant, and to reduce at the maximum the use of copper or the use of sulfur. We use organic grow. Although we are not certified yet, we are on the way to certifications, but we grow everything in organic. Before the harvesting, because our harvesting is manual, everything is manual, from Figuero 4 until Figuero Tinus. We have in the winery also sorting tables, because we make a second selection in the winery. And later on we have let me find the sorting table. Okay, this is the sorting tables. That is important that you can see it. And later on we use gravity flow. The gravity flow is fantastic because the seed remains unbroken, and we will have more fruitness in the wines, and also we will have less astringency in the wines. That means more quality. And we have a nice barrel oak, like you can see here, the cellar. This is underground. This is we make a small hole in the mountains, and we place the cellar there just to keep the temperature year-round control between 12-15 degrees. That means that we don't need to use external energy or to keep the temperature properly. And we use a very nice quality of oak. That this is another thing that is really key.
Felipe, can I ask you a question about the oak barrels? And I want you to explain a little bit about the numbers of the wines in a minute, but the oak barrels, they're very expensive new, aren't they?
Okay, you know, the old barrel has is giving to us different flavors, and is giving to us also aging potential for the wines. When you have a wines with more than 12 months in oak, usually you can taste today, but you can taste during the next 20 years. We use the oak for giving a nice profile and also for give more long life to the wines. We use American and French, mainly French oak. Why we use more French? Because it's giving more, it's giving some spices that make the wines more nicer in the when you taste it. American is giving to us more sweetness. That means more vanillin, more cocoa, more type of flavor like this. But with the French oak, we are tasting more the pepper. We are tasting this type of spices that also you can find some coffee notes, depending on the dose of the barrels. But this is a very, very complex world. I always say that this is the room for the winemakers. If you have a good winemakers, they can make a nice job. If the winemaker is not good, they will probably destroy all the work that we have made on the fields. Yeah. Because he needs to find the right balance in the wines between the fruitness and the oakiness. Mm-hmm. Especially for Figuero, that the aim of when we create wines is the fineness and is the elegance, is what how we understand the wines. Some questions until now?
Oh, I was going to ask everybody if they've got any questions to put those into the chat function, and I will ask them as we go along. So please type any questions that you do have in those questions. I've got one more about the barrels. I'm slightly obsessed with barrels. Do you sell them on once you've finished with using them to other producers such as sherry and whiskey producers?
We use a renting program for the barrel. That means that we buy, we rent for a couple of years, and then the renting company sells to other wineries.
Okay.
We have great reputations, and then there are so many different wineries that like to reuse our barrels.
Yeah.
But as the tendency in the wine industry, at least in Spain, is that the wines respect more the fruit. That because some years ago the tasting, especially in America, was more for the oakiness. Yeah. But now it's more like fruitness. Then we are using different type of barrels and different type of toast. And this is something that is changing. Now we are looking for barrels that are with less toasting and is giving to us more respectful for the fruitness. And this is a big challenge in the wine industry. Consumers are looking for other style of wines. Probably this is the reason why Ribera del Duero is so successful now, because we have the fruitness, we have the acidity, and our terroir is fantastic to create this style more modern that people love more than probably in Bordeaux or probably in Rioja. And this is, but also you need to understand how you can work with the barrels.
Yeah.
Not all the barrels are the same. This is why I say that the right winemaker need to have all this knowledge. We taste with them every couple of weeks, and this is why I understand the relevancy of the barrels in the winemaker.
It sounds to me as if the barrel maker is as important almost as the winemaker himself.
Yeah, it's a combination. You know that when we speak about wine, we speak about balance.
Yeah.
Balance is a simple word, but in the wine business means too much. It's tremendous, yeah, because you need to have the fruitness, you need to have the right acidity, you need to have the spices from the coke, but it should not be too much. The tannins should be in the right positions. And okay, this balance is, you need to have the expertise.
Okay, Felipe, I think we need to start tasting. I've been looking at these wines on my desk all day, so I'm desperate to have a taste of number 4. So Figuero 4, whilst we're all pouring this, if we haven't already, can you explain the numbers to us?
Yes, I will explain you the numbers, because when you can see 4, 12, and 15, the numbers means the month that is penny oak. But this criteria is a little bit more that as simple as that. Figuero 4 came from the youngest vines that we have, vines that are right vineyards, and the age of this vine is something like 20 years old. And the 4 month, here we use American and French. That means half and half. This is why when you will taste, you will find a little bit of vanillin or cacao notes, but the main character of this wine is the fruitness.
Very much so.
Fruitness means blackberry, strawberry. This is has a very nice acidity. And it's a wine that when you smell is boom, it's top flowers, yeah, freshness.
Of course, another thing to mention tonight is that all these wines are made from the same grape, Tempranillo, which is what Rioja is made from, and probably what its Tempranillo's most famous incarnation. So it's going to be very interesting for us tonight to taste the flight here that we're tasting in, and just to see how different they are from the different lengths of time they've spent in barrel. You're absolutely right. This is incredibly fruity.
These fruity wines, easy, but it has a nice mouth feeling, a nice freshness. It's a wine that's full in your mind. It's a wine that we use in Spain for tapas or for like a glass before dinner. It's a wine for every moment. You don't need to think too much. It's just enjoy, be funny.
Well, that's a perfect segue to Steve, talking about what we would eat with this particular wine. Now, Felipe has said tapas, and yeah, absolutely, I get that totally. What would you recommend, Steve?
What I'm going to do this evening, Penny, is I'm going to focus on Spanish cheeses to go with this iconic Spanish wine, but Spanish cheeses that are available in Britain, easily available. I'll tell you where you can get them from.
Excellent.
If I was to hold a quiz now and ask everybody who I'm looking at on my screen to sit down with a piece of paper and write down as many Spanish cheeses as they can, how many people would get beyond one? Very few, I suspect. Most people tend to think of Manchego, and that's sort of about it. So I'm just going to introduce you to one or two that I think particularly suit these wines. So the first wine, the first pairing that I'm going to give you for the 4 is something that's light and fruity and matches the sort of weight of the wine. This cheese, and this is where Penny will start typing, is called La Retorta. It's 2 words, La, L-A, then R-E-T-O-R-T-A. Are you familiar with La Retorta, Felipe?
Yes, I'm familiar with this type of cheese.
Excellent.
It's a good
This particular cheese comes from Extremadura, which is over towards the Portuguese border. If you were sort of driving from La Horra to Lisbon, for example, you'd go through Extremadura. And the thing that's particular about this cheese, it's a sheep's cheese, and it's soft. It is like yogurt soft. It's about 100-gram drum, if you can imagine, a little round, and it's got a very sort of gritty, salty rind to it, which doesn't sound very pleasant, but it's lovely, trust me. And you take a sharp knife and you slice the top off, and then you dip whatever you want into it. Depends what sort of party you're holding. No, seriously, you can use bread, you can use some little sausages if you want, you can use raw vegetables or a finger. Doesn't matter, just dip it in, and it is gorgeous. And as it goes down, you start cutting off or tearing off the rind and eating that as well. This comes, as I say, in a 100-gram round, a little thing about sort of 2 or 3 inches across, and it's normally wrapped in a corrugated cardboard, strangely, with a rubber band around it. And you can get it on the good deli counter of any good Waitrose. I'm not in the business of recommending shops, but they're the only ones that sell it in the UK, so I have to. Failing that, if you're close to London or want to spend a bit of money on Tinternet, there's a company called Brindisa who are based in Borough Market and Balham, who sell some unbelievable Spanish produce of all sorts. But La Retorta it would be my recommendation for the Figuero 4, because it's got the lightness and the fruitiness, and I believe the right sort of balance and weight.
Interesting. That sounds wonderful. Really good. But in terms of tapas, vegetable tapas such as padron peppers, for example?
What I would keep away from with the 4 is some really big heavy spice. We'll save that for a little bit later in this session. And I would keep away from red meats, to be honest. This is less of a red meat wine. This is more of a white meat wine. So perfect with chicken, perfect with some pork, vegetables, as you say, or indeed some seafood even. So
with fish and chips, it's also good.
Fish and chips, yes.
Yes,
I love it.
Mayonnaise, yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
I love to pair in red wines with fish, yeah. Also with salmon, yeah.
Yeah. Oily fish would be great.
Oh, yeah. I know that.
Well, we're always looking. My business colleague Ewan is always looking for something to have with his fish fingers, as he calls them. So that would be perfect, ideal. Yeah, very, very nice. Would you pair this with a pudding?
Do you know what? I mean, Felipe will have a view on this as well. I think you could do a lot worse than have a bowl of sort of what we call fruits of the forest. The sort of berries, you know, some blueberries, some raspberries, things like that. So a dark fruit salad, as it were, I think would be absolutely lovely. Or a crumble if it was me, but I don't think crumble's a very Spanish thing.
No, but you're getting all of those fruit flavours coming through, so I can imagine it would actually be perfect for that. Yeah, definitely. Excellent. So, shall we move on to the 12, which, you know, I'm going to hazard a guess here, Felipe, it has had 12 months.
Now the 12, Steve. Okay, we are, you can see the picture.
Yes.
You can see that, okay, probably you can recognize the type of cheese.
Is that a manchego?
It's a little bit manchego, yeah.
Fantastic.
I don't know, what do you have in mind? 12 is a little bit more than just 12 months in oak. Yeah, okay. 12 for us means that we are using the medium age vineyards, that means 40, 45 years old. Probably you know, as older is the vines, is getting more concentration, is giving to us less productions. For instance, Figuero 4 came from 20 years old vineyards, and this vineyard is giving to us 6.5 tons per hectare. Here we are having 5.5 tons per hectare. That means less productions, more concentration. The aging here is we change. It's mainly French, 75% French oak, and it's 25 years only American oak. The vintage that you are tasting, I presume, is 2016, and the Figuero 4, it was 2018. The 2016 and 2018 for us were two vintages in which we have normal rainfall, and this is giving to us more red fruitness. Later on in the Figuero 15, that is 2015, we'll have more black fruit, but here still is more red. This is why I have the strawberry here.
Mm-hmm. But a darker color than the first one, definitely. Slightly darker red.
it's a little bit more opaque. It's a little bit more. You have a little bit more density also, and you make the smell. Now you have fruitness, but you have more spicy.
Definitely spicy and slightly warmer.
It's a bit more spicy. Yeah, and you can find spare part. You can have raw.
Definitely.
Yeah, and when you taste the wines, you have a bigger mouth feeling. You can see the density. You can see the complexity. Yeah,
really, really makes your mouth water. Fantastic acidity, making your mouth water here.
Yeah, this is a wine. This is one of my favorite. Yeah, because it's.
Are you allowed to have a favorite?
Yes, I have 7 favorites because we have 7 wines. But depend of the pairing, or depend of the moment. Probably for me, Figuero 4 is more like a starter. Although I know that so many people say, okay, this is my wine, I don't need more. Figuero 4 is for a drinker that like to get a little bit more complexity. Mm-hmm. It's a wine in which, as Figuero 4 is more for white meat, Figuero 12 you can start with red meat.
Okay.
And you can start also with more. This has a little bit more fat.
And I think it's a longer length, as they call it. You can taste it longer after you've swallowed this wine. It's definitely got good length and great acidity. It's a really nice balance. What's the alcohol level on this one?
40 or 40.5.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually our wines has 40.5.
Well, that's high. We were tasting some Chilean wines last week, and even some of the whites were up at 13.5. So alcohol level seems to be getting higher and higher.
Yeah, but this is why we are adopting the organic cultivation, and we are using the infusers, because we need to keep and we try to get less production. Everything is playing, because the area where we are is critical. It's critical because if we are not working well in the fields, we will have more alcohol, or we can have less acidity.
Yeah.
This is why we need to find the balance also in the fields, and the way you farm has a huge influence. Mm-hmm. in these parameters.
We were talking to an Italian winemaker a while ago who's now retraining his vines to the canopy concept again, because he's finding that his grapes are getting sunburnt, and he's now recultivating so that the leaves are coming over like a canopy, not a canopy, a canopy.
Canopy or canopy. Yeah.
And that means that they're going to be protected, so to try and help bring some of the sugar down, because he's finding that with this hotter summers that his alcohol levels are almost out of control.
Yeah. At the end of the day, when we are working, we are managing the canopy. Now we are growing up the canopy something like 40 centimeters. In this way, as all the plantations are put north to south, mm-hmm. have the east and the west, and to have higher, we have more sun on the morning and more sun on the afternoon.
Yeah.
And we are trying to protect the berries from the sun.
Yeah, of course.
Because less sun means less taking less potassium. Potassium is giving more sugar, and then it's more alcohol. Wow. Then everything is, you never ends to learn in the wine business and in the viticulture.
Exactly.
As my father-in-law said, with 85 years, always say to us, every year I say less.
I can imagine.
All that I have learned now maybe doesn't work.
Oh dear.
And it's the climatic change is a big challenge for all of us.
I can imagine. So, Steve,
Right.
Told us red meat. What?
Yeah, there's a little saying that is what grows together goes together, which is a real truism. You know, if you're eating fresh seafood, dry white wine made by the sea tends to go well with it. It's a fact. So the Figuero wines are made in a region of Spain, or a province of Spain known as Castilla y León, which are two of the ancient kingdoms of Spain. And the two cheeses that I'm going to recommend both also come from Castilla y León. The first one is another sheep's cheese. It's called Zamarano, and it comes from the village of Zamora. It's a hard sheep's cheese. To the uninitiated, if you'd never seen it before and tried it, you might think it was a manchego, a semi-curado manchego, because it has a similar sort of texture to manchego or a pecorino from Italy, that type of thing, hard sheepy. It's rubbed in olive oil as well, so it's got a lovely oiliness to it, and the natural lanolin that comes out in hard sheep's cheeses. So why have we had two sheep's cheeses so far? Well, Spain makes a lot of sheep's cheese and a lot of goat's cheese, and the reason being Spain is not very flat and not very cold, and cows like cold, flat land. That's why they like England so much. So there's a lot of goats and a lot of sheep in Spain, and therefore there's a lot of their cheeses. So Zamarano, I'd highly recommend it. You really want to go to a proper cheese shop. I can't think of any of the big supermarkets that sell it, but a proper cheese shop. And I did say to Penny earlier this week, if any of you want to know where good cheese shops are within a certain diameter of where you are, just drop a line to Penny and we will send that straight back to you with some recommendations. The other cheese I'd recommend comes from a village called Avia, which I'm sure Felipe is very familiar with, says he, looking totally puzzled. It's made by a charming lady called Paloma Baez. She farms 100 goats and makes this goat's cheese that her father invented. It's a hard goat's cheese, which in itself is unusual. It is pure white. It's almost like alabaster type, you know, that sort of whiteness. And it has a blue mold injected into it, but the cheese is not pierced. So the blue mold only grows on the outside of it. It's the shape of a squashed Swiss roll. So if you can imagine taking a roll and splatting it, it would be that sort of lozenge in profile. Pure white in the middle, blue on the outside, and it's called Monte Enebro. Monte-Enebro. She only makes 50 cheeses a day, and they are very limited, very difficult to get hold of. So you would definitely need a specialist cheese shop, a good cheese shop, for Monte Enebro. Both of them have got a bit more punch than the first cheese I recommended, bit more guts, bit more body, and therefore fit the profile of the 12 perfectly. In terms of things away from cheese, we move here from chicken and seafood more towards pork, some lighter game. You're starting to get into chorizo territory, but not the really spicy stuff. Great with peppers. And I'll tell you what it does go really nicely with. I remember last time I was in Ribera, I wasn't visiting Felipe, unfortunately, but I had these lamb ribs served on a little tabletop barbecue, which was absolutely good. And they brought it to the table and you cook these lamb ribs. So lamb ribs, pork ribs, something like that, I think would go really nicely with this.
Felipe, I know in Rioja it's a tradition at the end of harvest to roast a whole goat and eat the whole goat. Do you have any kind of traditions like that for the end of harvest in Ribero?
Okay, nowadays everything changed. When my father-in-law was young, they have this type of tradition because all the people that work on the fields and all the people that make the harvesting is people that belong to the town of La Horra. Yeah. Nowadays, this is difficult to make because we have 75 people working on the fields, and the majority of them came from the neighborhood called Palencia, that is about 45 miles. And this is difficult to manage this situation.
Yeah.
This is traditional, that when you end the harvesting and you end the harvesting properly, you do something.
Yeah.
Usually it's the last lunch that we make on the fields, is where we make this type of festivity.
And this year, given this awful situation we're in, is harvest going to be complicated this year for you?
Why? Why? And until now, we are really happy because we have a nice rainfall. That is one of the main risks that we have. Is usually, especially in the last, in some of the last days, we have not enough rain.
Mm.
You cannot forget that we are dry cultivation.
Yeah.
And then if we don't get rains, we will have less quantity probably, and we need to make difference. We need to adapt a little bit in the winery to make nice wines. This year until now is fantastic. It's a little bit higher than average in raining. Now we have 300 millimeters. That is a little bit like 20% above average. The temperature is perfect because it's from the sanitary aspect, the vineyards are looking fantastic. And if everything goes like this, because we didn't suffer any hail, that usually happens at the end of April, we will have a nice vintage. Some people say, but it's coming, like Steve said, 2 or 3 weeks in advance. Okay, we need to see what's happening in summer.
Yeah.
The cycle starts on time, but we need to see if the summer is too dry or not, because the consequence of the altitude, as we are 800 meters altitude, the climate is a little bit more fresh. And then usually at the moment, if you ask me, when will be the harvesting? I say end of September, as usually. We don't have in mind now that the vintage will be 2 weeks earlier or 2 weeks later. This is something that we will see at the end of August, how the evolution of the climate and the evolution of the plants go. But until now, for us, is perfect vintage.
Well, if you need any pickers, and we're all allowed to travel,
how many?
Have a group of pickers all ready to come out.
How many again?
Okay, let's try the last one for tonight.
Okay.
Figuero 15. Now this
Figuero 15, and this is my surprise for my friend Steve. It's a table of different cheese. Yeah.
Cabrales.
Cabrales. Cabrales, Manchego, or Zamorano, okay? Because it's the same style of cheese. And the first, the one that is in triangles, is a cheese made with cow milk.
So there's Cabrales, Manchego, what was the last one?
Yeah, this is semi-curado cheese, this one. The one that is the triangles. Yeah. But it's made from cow milk, and the Manchego or Zamorano is made from sheep.
I'll come back to that.
Okay, fine. Right, I've got three glasses here to compare the different colours, and yeah, they're definitely getting more intense, darker as we go along, which you'd expect from a wine that spent 15 months in oak.
To make the Figuero 15, this is a little bit more than just 15 months in oak.
Okay.
This came from the all bush vineyards that we have in La Horra. That means that vines that is given to us 3 tons per hectare, 2 tons per hectare. And this is why you will find more concentration on the wines. The oak here is mainly French. And this vintage 2015, it was something like 85% French oak. And the quality of the oak is a little bit higher. Yeah. This is why you will recognize a little bit, the fruitness is a little bit ripened, but you will recognize more spicy. It's not only pepper or globe. You also can recognize some leather a little bit, or some cigar box. It's more complex, more complexity, more density, more elegancy. It's a wine that, the Reserva Mini is a 3 years wine. and 2015 is now 5 years. Then it's very rounded, it's very elegant, and it's a wine that you can use for dinner, or you can use after the dinner for a nice talk with your family or with your friends. Probably it's a nice competitor of the gin tonic after dinner. You can use a Figuero 15 instead of use a whiskey from Scotland or a gin tonic. This is a nice wine for a nice party, a nice dinner. And enjoy. Huh?
That is it's fantastic. It's just delicious, sublime. I'm loath to say this, but there's definitely a little sweetness in there, which makes it just so smooth.
It's really smooth. And the good point is that you taste 4, 12, and 15. And as you can see, with the Saints Varietal Tempranillo, with the Saints Leroy, the town of La Horra, and the Saints Winery, that we are able to create different profile of wines.
Different wines, exactly. And they are quite different. And that's what's been really interesting about tasting the three of them together, because they are really quite distinctive.
We are specialized in Tempranillo, and we are specialized in the terroir of La Horra. This is why we can make 7 different wines, but yes, these 3 wines are a nice example for a winery that is able to make different style of wines. The freshness from the Figuero 4, the very well balance of the 12, and here is more opulent. And also you can see the difference moment, because probably Figuero 4 is for a soft dinner, or for when you arrive home and say, okay, I need a glass of wine for relax, and you drink a glass of Figuero 4.
Yeah.
If you go for dinner, say, now, okay, scan my friends or my family, I will use the 12. And in some special days, like Sundays or Saturday night, you say, okay, it's not only that we cook at home or we go abroad, it's that we like to have a nice conversation, and then the 15 play a good role.
Yeah, the 15 is for me, and for me only. It's delicious, absolutely delicious. But Steve, I don't think you'd need anything to go with this. This would just have it on its own.
Do you know what I'd pair with this? A good friend, but only one. Because it is only a 750ml bottle after all.
I agree.
If you were going to have some cheese, which is not a bad thing, and Felipe has put some up there, this is where our Manchego comes into play. But the problem with Manchego is, particularly if you're a British tourist, everywhere you go in Spain, they tell you that the cheese they give you is Manchego, and it very rarely is. There's Felipe referred earlier on to cow's milk cheese. Manchego is a sheep's milk cheese, and it's made from milk from the sheep breed known as Manchego. The clue is there. But you get similar style cheeses in other parts of Spain, but you want the real deal Manchego here. And what you really want, you get different ages of Manchego. You get something that people tend to call Iberico or something like that, which is not really Manchego at all. It's very, very young and should be completely ignored. You then have something called semi-curado, which is like 3 weeks up to about 3 months old. And then you get curado, which is 3 months to about 9 to 12 months, that sort of thing. And then after that, you get añejo or viejo. And that is what you should be eating. You have to go to a good shop. I would go to Brindisa in Borough Market for this. Or if you're in Spain, try and get it. I've had it up to 5 years old when it almost looks like a bar of chocolate, and it's so brittle. But it is intense and it is beautiful. But it's got this sort of sweetness that underlies it that goes beautifully with this. If you were going to have something non-cheese, I think this is where your morcilla comes in really nicely. Morcilla is, for those that don't know, is black pudding, or boudin as they call it in France, but it's morcilla, or albondigas, sort of some meatballs or something, or oxtail, or so you want these rich, sweet, spicy flavors to go with this. It's a big wine and it deserves big partners.
That's a really interesting one, black pudding. Well, Thea, I hadn't thought of that, but that, you know, we always think
I don't know. I'm looking at Felipe for.
Yeah.
we think of black pudding in this country as being something you have for breakfast,
Yeah.
but it's a delicacy in Spain, and you have morcilla sausages on the barbecue, and you're absolutely right. This would be superb with that. Absolutely. Do you agree, Felipe?
Concerning black sausage, usually we prefer the figure of 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We use more figure of 4 for the black sausage.
Okay.
Because it has more freshness.
Okay.
I agree with you that the figure of 15 goes very well with añejo cheese, with the older cheese. Also with cabrales cheese.
See.
Also with the chocolate. With dark chocolate, with a brownie is fantastic, the pairing. This is why we usually I dessert figure of 15 for dessert and figure of 15 for the talk after the dessert. We use figure of 12 when we eat baby lamb. The baby lamb pairing, the pairing with baby lamb is fantastic with the figure of 12. Also, you can use figure of 15, but my suggestion is more with the 12. And
Felipe, I shall have to come and see you for the weekend and conduct some tasting with morcilla just to convince me that you're right.
For sure that we have the best morcilla in the world. There is called morcilla de Burgos. You know, Spain. Yeah, in Spain we have different type of black pudding.
Yeah.
What we have in our region is the ones that is going with the rice, and then it has nice spicy. Depend of the place in Spain. You go north like León. Probably you need a little bit more strong wine, or you go to in Murcia region that is on the east part on the Mediterranean side. The way that they produce the morcilla is completely different to the way that we have in Burgos. We use the rice and we use one of the flavor that you can recognize is the anisette.
Oh, nice.
And then it's very. We are local. And we use figure of 4 for morcilla. But
of course, in the UK, we have different types of black pudding. You have the Bury black pudding, and then you have the Scottish black pudding. And Scottish black pudding is quite different. But I have to tell you, Felipe, when I was living and working in Spain, I used to be teased a lot by my colleagues. And one of the things, and you can tell me whether this is true or not, one of the worst insults you can say to somebody is "que se den morcilla," which literally translated into English is that I give you a black pudding.
Yeah, but you know why? Because morcilla in Spanish is a cheap product.
Okay, that's.
Then it's okay. It's when say okay.
Okay, nobody explained that to me, so now I know.
Because it's a very cheap product, and then it's when you don't like a guy who is fighting with you, say okay, let's go.
Yeah. Morcilla.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate well into English. I'm going to give you a black pudding.
Because this is Spanglish, yeah.
Exactly.
You have a different sentence to say someone okay, bye.
I love it. I'm going to start using that. So we've got chocolate brownies, which all sounds wonderful. Meatballs, albondigas, black pudding. Oh, what are we going to have for dinner?
Meatballs depend. Steve, depend. If the meatballs came from pork or came from beef. Meatball from pork, figure of 12. Meatball from beef, figure of 15. And the tail of the beef, you know that this is the time in Spain from corridas, from toreros. This is the month. May is the month where we have in usual regular years bullfighting everywhere. Yeah. And there's one of the dishes that we make is the tail of the beef. Is we cook it. Yeah. It's a nice recipe. And it's very fatty with all the meat of the of the toro or the middle of the beef, and I suggest Figuero 15 for that.
Oxtail.
Oxtail, yeah. Fantastic. Well, Felipe, that was just fantastic. Only to taste a flight of the same wines from different years and different lengths in oak and different, as you say, different vines from different ages, I think has been really fantastic. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, please type them into the chat. I'm sure, Andrew, you've got something you want to say. I'm going to unmute you, Andrew.
I never normally talk, you know that. I tell you what, Philippe, these wines just showcase how the style of of your winemaking just continues from the young through each sector, and the quality of the grapes you're putting in there just showcase what's coming out in the bottle. They are fabulous and just growing up range. And the one thing we mustn't forget, and this is for all of us, is that these are the commercial side. They've got 3 or 4 stunning small vineyard properties where they make other old particular parcels, and they grow again, getting older and older. The vines and the length in wood, and they are just lovely. And we mentioned earlier about Felipe's mother-in-law. She's obviously a key part of the operation.
Milagros.
It is fabulous to have a very stunning style of their product called Milagros after her. The wine is got great depth. It's almost feminine on the mouth as well. And that just showcases what they can do at that property. It's just it's a pleasure to work with them. And the wines are just great.
So Felipe, is Milagros still involved in the business?
Okay, Milagros is 86 years old. And then my father-in-law, that is also 86 years old, is more involved because he likes to go with the tractor to cultivate the vines. And then he likes to go every day to the fields, he likes to go every day to the vine. My mom-in-law is more at home now. Yeah? At every festivity that we make in the family, he joins us, he's very happy.
Fantastic.
We dedicate this wine to her in the vintage 2010. We create a different wine, because at this time we have 6. We asked the winemakers how we can create a different wine with a different profile. Then we choose different some plot, and in this case we use complementary plot. Instead of we use the plot that are close one to each other, we use difference because one is north orientation, another one is east, another one is west. And then we try to put all of this together, looking for the balance. Some is giving more acidity, another one's more fruitness, another one a little bit more structure. And the aging in this case, we change the regular barrel of 225 or biggest barrels, for 500 liters barrels, pure French. And we need to make a nice selection of the oak. Mm-hmm. And the result is a fantastic wine, very, very elegant.
Milagros is just delicate but fabulously rich and full as well.
And then Andrew, sorry to interrupt you, when we got the wine, later on we say, okay, this is like a miracle, okay? It's like and then we say, this is the wine that we like to represent us for the rest of our life. And then we say, okay, the name is Milagros is the name of my mom-in-law.
That's a lovely story and a tribute to her, I'm sure. Fantastic. Right, well, I'm going to unmute everybody if I can figure out how to do that. And please ask questions. I'd love to know what's your favourite, everybody. I know which is mine. That's easy.
The most expensive.
Of course.
15.
How are
15.
You? Yeah, 15 is definitely my favourite. Would you say the same?
First one would be a good warm-up.
Yeah.
Number 4, good warm-up. Number 15, definitely.
I agree, definitely.
Yeah.
No rugby connotation there, Rog.
You can't get too many 15s, can you? Leave them to a bit later. Can't have them too early.
Second row 4. I like the 12 though. I do like the 12.
You might have seen in the background that Felipe was showcasing some big bottles. These wines keep fabulously in big bottles, folks.
Really?
Put them on the list and make them available, because they do keep, but they normally you want to open 2 bottles. We've got magnums and they are available. Winery has some big bottles as well.
Okay, well, some of us have got significant birthday celebrations to catch up on when they're over, so we may well be doing that. Definitely, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Anybody got any other questions they'd like to ask Felipe before we go?
It was only a quick one because I ask this one each time. Is there any that you'd serve a bit cooler?
Or maybe.
Alison, again, I cannot hear you well.
Oh, sorry.
She asked, is there any of these wines you'd serve a little bit cooler than room temperature? I have to say mine were quite warm today, but that's because I think the rooms are warm.
Yeah.
Would you suggest any of these a little chilled? Probably number 4, if any of them.
Yeah, I think.
I cannot understand you very well. I cannot
Speak
hear.
in Spanish, Penny.
No, okay. He's asking if any of these wines we should chill or serve a little bit.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay.
Sí.
Más frío.
Yes, yeah, okay. Probably Figuero 4 is the one that
Number 4.
Figuero 4 is the one that you can chill a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you know that this is always personal preferences. We suggest to drink red wines and not ambient temperature. That means between 16 degrees until 18 degrees. But I found around the world, as people like, especially in world places like California, they say, okay, 12 for me is perfect. Then 12 for you, Alison, is perfect. We need to find. This remember me the day in which a Scottish guy showed me how to taste whiskey. In Spain, we always taste whiskey with ice. I say, I don't like whiskey. This guy showed me in a glass of wine, they put a little bit of whiskey, say, okay, smell, taste, put in water with the temperature of the water that you want, until the whiskey you recognize that is the right content alcohol for you. It's not too heavy. And then I start drinking whiskey this way. I say, okay, yeah, this is the way to drink whiskey, not how the people teach in Spain with ice in the crystal.
That's true. They call it cutting it with a little bit of water, and it's tiny little bit, but it does make a difference. I'm not a whiskey fan, but I've been taught how to drink whiskey, and it's with a little tiny bit of water. You're right.
And the good point with the wine, if you chill a little bit, like 10 or 12 degrees, and you put it in the glass, probably in 4 or 5 minutes, the wine is warm up, and then go to the atmosphere temperature. At the first sip, for you is, if you are looking for refresh, that sometimes we use the wine for refresh ourselves, you will refresh yourself, and the second sip and the third sip, you will recognize all the flavors. We do not suggest to chill the red wines because you miss some of the flavors.
That's true.
But in the other hand, if you like to use for refresh, do it. But don't worry, 2-3 minutes, they will go to normal temperature, and then you will recognize all the nice fruitness and the nice flavor that the wine has.
Fantastic, Felipe. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I'm sure you have as much as I have. These have been fabulous wines. I'm delighted. They will, as we say every week, they will keep for a couple of days if you need them to. Normally, but they will very well. And just to let you know that next week, if you're up for another tasting, we are absolutely delighted to introduce Marc Chapoutier now. Marc is actually from the Chapoutier family, which is an incredibly well-established French family. And Marc is going to do some Rhône and Languedoc wines with us, which we've chosen especially to be summer wines. So there's some rosés in there, there's some great whites in there. So I'm really looking forward to chatting to Marc next week. Same time, same place. So just to let you know, that's what's happening next week. And then after that, I think we're into Argentina.
And Argentina.
I think we're in Argentina after that. So
Can I just say, Penny, Philippe, Steve, brilliant, great performance as always. The wine is stunning.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Thank you
Felipe.
very much, Penny. Thank you.
you.
Glad to get together.
All of you for tasting together today. Have a good summer, because we are close to the summer. I hope that we are able to solve this issue with the COVID very soon, and we can see one to each other and shake the hands and give kisses and everything.
yeah, and we will see you very soon, Felipe.
Cheers to that.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Yes, Felipe.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.